So the soiled reputation that everybody loves to give King James the First because he went after witchcraft, I would say if you look at it from the biblical lens, God was okay with it. Because he was doing that before he was king of England. He was king of Scotland, and in Scotland he was burning them at the stake. Not a lot of them, but these were people too that they were threatening him. And witchcraft was going on in Scotland. They outlawed it before he came in. But to believe that it just disappeared it would lack common sense. And again, who would they go after? They would go after good kings, okay? Now, Mary, Queen of Scots, his mother, she was removed from the throne. She was over Scotland, not England, but Scotland. And she was removed because it was believed that she was involved in her first husband's murder. Whether that's true, who knows? However, she was a Catholic. God wasn't going to let a Catholic get into the King of England. He wasn't. I mean, just look at the history. There's always something that happens because God intervenes in this world more than people, look and say, well, why is it always, I mean, King James II was, the people got him removed. So God does not support it. So she ended up being removed from the throne. That's why King James I barely knew her. He was raised, when he was born, she baptized him Catholic. But who he was raised by was Protestants. He was actually a Presbyterian. And he leaned towards the Anglican Church, which was the Church of England. So he wrote a whole book, not the Bible. Everybody likes to say, oh, he wrote his own Bible. No, he didn't. He, again, got the best scholars together to, and you could imagine that he would want to get rid. That's why he wanted rid of the pro-popery propaganda and everything that was legit, because he absolutely believed that witches were putting hexes on him and Anne of Denmark, who he was married to. And you can write that off, and you can think that he was evil. But if he was evil, God would have never allowed him to raise to the throne of England. It's not a rare book, but this cover is rare, but it's his book. Yeah, it was all about, it was making the argument for why you have to eradicate witchcraft. Now, I'm not saying we do that today, but back then, they had some horrific human I've done videos about how in Europe and different parts all over, people were finding these human sacrifices because of witchcraft. So just outlawing it doesn't mean it gets rid of it. And that was the problem with it, is that you are sacrificing humans. So his book aimed to prove the danger of witchcraft through biblical scripture and counter skeptics who denied the existence and power of witches and demons. It was initially published in Scotland in 1597 and then reprinted in England in 1603 after James ascended to the English throne. King James' personal involvement in witch trials such as North Berwick witch trials heavily influenced the book. Again, he didn't just going after anybody. These were people that were making threats against him. The work includes a study of magical arts, necromancy, and demonology, explaining how demons are believed to interact with humans. It supports the practice of witch hunts and outlines the theological and philosophical justification for severe punishment of witchcraft, including death. The book delves into the nature and existence of witches and demons, defending the reality of witchcraft. Key points in his book is it is structured as a dialogue between two characters, the skeptic and the believer in witchcraft. And this is just another cover. Now this is a book that he did write. Yeah, I've delved into it. It's really pretty thorough, actually. I mean, to act like he was just some crazy person trying to go after people and burn them at the stake for no reason is ridiculous. If you shouldn't be threatening kings anyway. But people made this world, of course, would make him out to be paranoid because he was a good king. They're going to make the bad kings look good and the good kings look bad. That's just what this world does. But if you look at it from a biblical standpoint, God would have never raised him up to the English throne if God had issue with him burning those women at the stake. Now, if you read into it, because of course the scholars being all, the liberal fanatics, okay, they always want to make, any good king look bad. They would say that, these women were forced through torture to admit. No, they were admitting it beforehand. They were threatening. They were threatening. He wasn't the only one they did it to. He wasn't. Again, there was you can't force Christianity on people, so that was part of the problem. And he wasn't doing that. But there was kings. I don't believe he was doing that. Because I think but before, when Christianity was first coming through, which would have been before him, there was kings and leaders that were trying to force Christianity. And part of the reason they were doing it was because there were these human sacrifices going on. And they would just find all these body parts. And it was like, we have to do something. So, you could understand kings saying, we have to force Christianity. The problem with that is that you're usually just going to get people more resentful and digging their heels in more. So that's what happened. Instead, they didn't want to be, persecuted. So they acted like they were Christian. All the while, they continued to be, toying in their witchcraft. Now, obviously, this is a different time than what we live in now, but he shouldn't get a bad rap because of this. And I'm saying he shouldn't, because if God had issue with it, God would have done something about it. Because whether people want to realize it or not, God intervenes more than you think. So everybody, I guess in Scotland, and many people complain that the rightful heir to the seat of England should have been Mary, Queen of Scots, but she was taken into custody. But yeah, so God did not want her to become one. That would be my argument. Why? Because she's Catholic. And had he not been, he ended up being a king from the time he was 13 months old because of her. But then he was raised by Protestants, so God raised him up. You don't have to believe that, but it's just, if you look at the pattern, God has very much intervened in who the kings are. And which kings he will take down. He'll raise them up, he'll take them down whenever he feels like it. And the ones he takes down pretty quickly are the ones that decide to get in and pretend that they're one thing, like one of his sons did, or King James II. A couple of his sons had hidden that they were Catholics. So, God will not tolerate it. So, it's really God that intervenes, because why does it always happen to the Catholic kings? It's not hard to put together. And so if God had issue with King James going after witchcraft, the biblical God, then he would never have been raised up. He would have put it this way: God would have let him be blown up in Parliament. He would have, because he would have just like with ones that go astray. So he clearly wasn't going astray, is what I'm saying. This world doesn't have to like that, but that's why sometimes it's good to look at things through the biblical view so you can get a different perspective.